There was loads of empty properties. Portobello still was, half of it was burnt out. It was very rough, bit dangerous. All Saints Road was that was the front line. You just didn't go down magazines. So the doorbell rings about a week later, and in walks Paul Dennis, Gary Haseman, Andy Wetherall, Simon Eccles, Steve Maisy, Terry Farley, all in one go.
Wow.
And they sat down and went, yeah, we need like in a fanzine cover. So he's got tights on. He's got tights on. Phil Dirtbox is 6'4", and I'm 5'7", and they're both taller than me. We're so on it. We went to the toilet, we started swapping all of Gary again. So Gary gave me the idea for, give the idea of like a loose brief for Future, Spectrum, and the couple of the boys' owns. So Asia Diver with a big eye, Spectrum, heaven on earth, like that, really clever. But on the back, I put that phrase, have you passed the acid test? Instead of just putting Mondays, which are corrected later on. So the bill to do the posters, badges, and print that in full colour metal plate process, not digital. Paul printed it at night behind his boss's back, but the real bill for that in 1988 was £6,000. And it was Gary who said, yeah, I want like, in the hour, I want like a geezer with a cat and a dog. Well, the dog actually is my pit bull called Alice, because I had a pit bull in 87, 88. What's this new sort of graphic style? He went, right, I'll get you 2 magazines, I want it like this. And that's why I did that sort of weird, sort of futuristic...
With Tim on the front.
On the front with the futuristic gun. And someone had the bright idea to break out 30 tabs of window pane acid.
No.
So we left that, and by now I'm blazing. So we walked down the road. I think Johnny Rocker was on stage. He was sitting next to Ginger Baker, and he just stood still for half an hour with like a lampshade on his head. You know, back in the day, it's not just youthful energy, but I mean, I have to be honest here. Due to a couple of characters I knew, I had access to the amount of drugs which would turn your hair white. You know, the early 2000s, it was quite traumatic. You could see the end of the music industry as we knew it.
On this week's show, we have someone who designed some of the most iconic acid house flyers back in the late 80s. The Spectrum flyer from 1988 being one of them. Also the Future flyer, which was a Balearic club night in 1987. Who's also designed the Boys' Own record label, as well as many record covers from Bomb the Bass, Enter the Dragon, S-Express, Stereo MCs, many more. Has worked for Michiko Kashino. And we have the hugely talented, we've got David Little in the back.
Good to be here, Steve. Fantastic. What an intro.
Dave,
get your breath after that. Get your breath.
Nah, listen, I'm used to it. Listen, it's an honour, my man. It's an absolute honour.
Fantastic. Good to be here.
And yeah, it's great to have you in the back of the cab. Can't wait to talk, you know, about history, about, you know, about obviously Spectrum and Future, and you know, about the record covers, like, you know, what was the ideas behind the covers.
Lovely, absolutely. Story behind every design I do, as long as the meter's not running. I've got to
listen, I paused it.
Just on that's it, it's fine. Yeah, it's paused. It's on 15 quid. Yeah, okay, that's it. Come on, mate, mates rate. Cash, mates rate.
I'll do you some mates rates. No,
Thank you very much.
Listen, an absolute honour, mate. Absolute honour.
No worries.
And listen, my first 2 questions I always kick it off with is, you know, whereabouts are you from, and what was it like growing up, you know, as a kid?
Oh, bloody hell, there, God. So I was born in 64, Newcastle Infirmary. My dad was a marine engineer on super tankers. His dad was one of the bosses at Tyne Docks, so he was, my dad's family were very well known. And basically, as a young kid, I don't know, people get a flash of inspiration, but I started drawing when I was 3. Wow. And I think the cat was out the bag. When I was 5, I drew a suspension bridge. And then by 7, kids draw, I don't know, Spitfires like crucifixes when they fly, but I was doing mine in like a perfect plane. I was working stuff out and like how to mix sort of felt tips to get like a seamless gradient, and yeah, you just sort of had it really. But sadly, other parts of my academia weren't quite up to scratch. I think I was a little bit backward, couldn't tell my alphabet, or I couldn't tell the time on a watch till I was 13, or the alphabet. That was my mother brain was on, you know, drawing Leonardo's self-portrait when I was 10 years old, but I couldn't do my times table, you know.
Your kind of special power was like the art form. You know, what kind of music was you growing up on?
I remember music made an impact on me. There's a couple of reasons why. I mean, I literally remember Phil Spector's Wall of Sound, Motown stuff. I mean, when I was 3, I mean, that was haunting for me. Obviously, you know, when I was 5 or 6, towards the late 60s, the Stones. And then during the 70s, a lot of my friends you would say politely they were working class. We would sort of middle upper class, whatever you call it. But I used to kick around and I really did find, you know, that other end of the spectrum in society, they were way more into music. I mean, these guys were into Zeppelin, T-Rex, Bowie, was massive. And probably that's where my fascination for record sleeves first started, really, and especially for fashion as well.
Yeah.
I mean, those working class kids, I mean, you see them walk around in a teddy boy suit, like, my dad had a drape. You know, they just did it right, you know, skinheads, crombies, that sort of thing, you know, that whole sort of subculture, tribal look that Britain was, you know, incredible for years and years.
And as you said, those kind of record covers, like the artwork on them, were, apart from the music being, like, brilliant as well, it's like the design on those record covers and the, like, picture discs and all that were on another level.
Yeah, I think it was, I think the budgets, my take on that is, the record sleeve, apart from a glimpse at Top of the Pops before MTV and hear it on the radio, all you would literally see of a band, unless they're on tour, is a T-shirt, a record sleeve, or a poster which you could nick and put on your bedroom wall. So that's the only media, so that's why back in the day these intricately designed and some absolutely beautiful Elton John's Yellow Brick Road by Alan Aldridge, who was the Beatles illustrator. Airbrush artist is amazing. You know, the budgets would be 30, 40, 50k. You know,
that's back
that
then.
was then. That was back then.
Yeah.
I mean, they would, you know, obviously would buy out or whatever, but it was very, very essential. Pink Floyd, you know, the hidden meanings, and you know, sort of. Storm Ferguson actually did I got to know him. My mate used to do artwork for him in the late '80s. He was a paste-up artist for him. Yeah, it was just a different age, I think, back then. You know, you didn't have a device. You fubbed through the phone. You actually looked at a drawing for hours. Well, I did anyway, and I think that's when my style of detail came in, and craft and doing it properly, really. Is
it like growing up in Newcastle? I mean,
well, yes, that's a choice and painful in equal measures. I mean, you know, keep it short. I mean, I failed my 11 plus because there was definitely a bit of ADHD, autism going on, you know, and basically, you know, because my family were all engineers and mathematicians. I mean, I was the last year that took the 11 plus, so when I failed, I mean, it was, for this middle class family, it was an absolute disaster, that, you know. And the first day at school, I think I had 2 fights. I think one guy had jumped up and down on his head. And I just to tell you another thing, this is a true story. We were all called into the assembly hall. This is, you know, back in the punishment days, including girls and boys. There was a mass caning on stage. You know, when like 20 people just line up on stage to get belted.
In the cane. Wow.
And I went, right, this is the start. And of course the art teacher was cool to a degree, but you know, maybe down south or up north, but they're just not geared towards artists. I mean, you know, bloody, I think Brian Ferry's from Washington. He's partly Geordie anyway, and I mean, probably why I just ran to London. It was, they just didn't know what to do with you if you had a talent. They all tried to gear you towards, literally, I saw reams and reams of guys geared to work in a factory or go down the coal mines when they were still operable up north. And
it must have been hard.
I used to fight and it was just rough, but all my mates were bigger than me and used to look after me, and I developed a sense of humour, so in the end the bullies never picked on me and they found me funny. Yeah, it was just, it was a tough, a different place to what it is today, you know. They were just hard men, you know, very industrial, working on shipyards, pit miners and stuff, you know, family down the pits and stuff. Yeah, different work. Hard life.
Hard life, definitely. So, what was the kind of spark then that kind of lit that flame for you to come to the Big Smoke in London?
Oh my God, it was, well, back in the day, I mean, you know, you're talking about a sort of an underground hip, fashion and music based, you know, sort of a media magazine. I think there was only 2. Well, ID, when it started, it was just full of like people photographed on the street. I think it was printed in like one colour, like either green and black or black and green. And I think the original ones are like stapled together. I think the guy did the artwork, he's off Portobello. And for a start, I saw, you imagine, you know, there was nowhere near the thousands of labels now. So you had to go to thrift stores and make your own look, which I did as well. Well, my mum ran a second-hand shop, so I've got the cream of the crop. But the Face magazine for me, when I, you know, some boy 3, and then you saw, you know, the big thing for me was actually, who's now a very good friend of mine, is Chris Sullivan. So I saw Chris Sullivan wearing a straw border with Christos, wearing a full-length original zoot suit with a keychain when he was in Blue Rondo à la Turk, and I just went, wow, you know, who are these guys? I ended up getting a drape made. I was only 17. But I saw that, and you just know. Most of the college I was with, and even at art college, literally about 80% stayed and went straight to Newcastle, which is a great Grade B A course, but I didn't. I said, no way, man, I'm coming down. So I arrived just after my 18th birthday. I got the train down by myself, got my flat sorted out.
So what year was this?
This was, I came down in 82 and finished college 84, 85.
Wow.
And it was...
so London was...
it's a completely different place. I mean, all around here.
Totally different place, yeah.
Well, it was just, I mean, I'll never forget how many bombed out buildings there were. I mean, the East End wasn't even on the map, but we used to go there to the East End. I used to go there with Renegade Soundwave years ago. You know, stories of Chris Sullivan and Boy George. I mean, they squatted a house on Beak Street, I think it was 4 stories high in the centre of West London. There was loads of empty properties. Portobello still was, half of it was burnt out. It was very rough, bit dangerous. Old Saints Road was that was the front line. You just didn't go down there.
Well, in actual fact, most of London, or in fact all of London, was quite rough.
Well, it was just dirty. I mean, yeah, but that was the last. You forget, I mean, I wouldn't say like you could add to it. I mean, it's the living memory. The Second World War just finished, you know what I mean? And you look around and Berwick Street, Soho was rough. I used to...
There was a proper red light district then, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh my God, I had fights there. And I mean, I used to come up from, I knew all the guys from Hayes, and they used to know the punk band, the Ruts. They knew Spear of Destiny. They were like the crew that followed Kirk Brandon around, Stan Stanners, and I got to know that lot quite really well. But they were tough guys. I mean, they would breed pit bulls and knock you out. But I'm still friends with some of them today who are still alive. They're as good as gold. But they started taking me to the West End, so I was clubbing, and I was more drawn. You know, even today, I'm more drawn towards rock music. I mean, people think, "No, acid house, mate." I'm 60. I look like Papa Smurf, and it's like, you know, if you want to bounce up and down and listen to DSK's "What Would We Do" for about the billionth time, then you carry on and do it. I think I've sort of done with it. In fact, the story I'll tell you is I was done with it by the early 90s, because I left it, and a quick aside, I bumped into Andrew Ridgely through my friend Paul Dennis and Gary Esmond and Dave Riddler. And he got me, I was a bike rider anyway, and he got me into the high-end superbikes. So I didn't go clubbing for a while, but in the mid-90s, Seb Fontaine came on the scene, and he dragged me back into clubbing. So, you know, Martin Heath, who ran Rhythm King, he said, "Geordie, you were bored then, didn't you leave it for a while?" I went, "Yeah, I did," and I got back into it, and then... Yeah, I don't know. A bit done with it, really.
But when going back to so you went to art college. So obviously, what was you studying at art college?
I did two disciplines, which is it's slightly quite rare. You either do graphic design or you do illustration. Well, I did both. So I was like, I'm probably more of an artist than anything, but I was really interested in graphics and logo design, and like the American style of graphics and logos are a lot more illustrative than the British. And I was very, very led by the American sort of counterculture. You know, just amazing, some of the stuff. I'm big fan of Robert Williams, who did Appetite for Destruction, blah, blah, blah. So yes, it was. I studied that. They made sure I failed, because I used to row with the teachers all the time. I thought they were really bigoted. I was an airbrush artist. They used to downmark me because the illustration teacher hated airbrushing. So she made sure I came last every time. I mean, you listen to that now and it's a bit wrong. Anyway... within a year of leaving, I bumped into Carl Bonney, and he was forming a band with Danny Breater and Gary Asquith called Renegade Soundwave, and they've got a lot of history. And it was through Danny that I started to go to really underground parties in the East End. He was playing like dub and reggae and stuff, and I was breakdance and hip hop, and they sort of mixed up that dub and hip hop, and they were meant to go on tour with Depeche Mode, because Rhythm King was next door to Mute Records. And it was through Carl that he started taking me to the West End. He was very talented, and he introduced me to Martin Heath, and that's within a year. That's when the record sleeve started, because I was a commercial artist doing storyboards for like Del Monte, and I think Johnny O printed the Boys Old Mag. Before I met him, he contracted me to airbrush a Twix packet and a Mars bar, because a lot of things were illustrated then. I got like 600 quid for a day's work or something. It's a lot of money in '95.
So was you doing record covers before you was doing
No. The Carl Bonney's was the first. I sort of wanted to do, but didn't know how to get into it. But I was a commercial artist, basically. I was doing... People thought, I don't know, some ad company was phoning up and say, "Oh, do you want to do Bublicious, or do you want to airbrush a Twix packet, or do you want to do a poster for..." I used to work at Penn Studio on the 3rd floor, And we all were on desks then. We paid about 25 an hour. It was a lot of money then. Remember, no computers, you had to come to an artist. And that was 2 floors above. Years later, Nicky Holloway's Velvet Underground.
Wow.
Yes, the clubbing thing. There's a couple of stories about that.
What are you going back to, like the acid house?
No, this is pre-acid house. I mean,
Right.
you know, to cut a long story short, there's my friend Kev Louis. He's had a hairdresser's in Ealing, and he knew 3 nefarious characters: Paul Dennis, Gary Hazeman, and Splurge. And me and Paul Dennis still speak today. Gary sadly passed away about 3-4 years ago. And they said, these mates from Hayes, they want to start a club in the West End. One's going to be called the Raid. They need a massive 30-foot wide backdrop, and they need a flyer. And they've got these other guys starting a magazine. So the doorbell rings about a week later, and in walks Paul Dennis, Gary Hazeman, Andy Wetherall, Simon Eccles, Steve Maisie, Terry Farley, all in one go.
Wow.
And they sat down and went, we need like fanzine cover. And Gary Hayes walked in, he went, alright man, he knew I was a Geordie. He loved Geordies, he always told me.
Did they used to nickname you Geordie?
Well, I was always called Geordie, because I think on the West End, I think there's only about 2 Geordies in the whole of the West End at the time. We're kind of a rare breed. And me and Gary, just as soon as I met him and Paul Dennis, I just absolutely got on like a house on fire. We became very, very good friends. And that's where it all started. And at the same time, I'd met Carl Bonney, Renegade Soundwave, and then I said through a friend of a friend, I met Johnny Rocker, then I met Paul Oakenfold. I think he's working at Profile Records and acting. So I did a logo for him called Power Promotions, which was taken over by Paul Gattell. This was in the mid-80s. And then slowly but surely, from advertising, I started drifting, sort of by choice, but not planned. You know, I'd done like 3 #1 LPs and singles, and then by 87, 88, slowly got to Michiko Kishino. And that was another story. But yes, it was the Future and Spectrum. Future for me was...
So let's talk about the Future Flyer. I mean, you know, the design was great. I mean, the Future Flyer, that came out in, was that 1987, wasn't it?
87 back end, I'm pretty sure. It was basically, it's the unsung hero in this. Is you've got Ian St. Paul Oakenfold. They've got a lot of history. They went to America clubbing, etc. But the instigator, for, the unsung hero in this is Gary Hazeman. So basically, he's the one who said Future, and he said, right Dave, I want right dance you fuckers, like that. Britain's first and original Balearic club. I went, alright. So that was a rough brief. And that was next door. It was a tiny gay club on the back, tacked on the back of Heaven. It was both the same club. You had doors to go.
Soundshaft.
Heaven, Soundshaft, yeah.
That was behind Heaven, yeah.
Behind Heaven,
and there was a tunnel that led from Soundshaft to Heaven.
Well, you weren't allowed because next door the bouncers there, but I was allowed because next door was Rage, and I designed the flyer for that. So that was I don't forget the DJ. That was a little bit more hip hop, bit sound, but we're a bunch of generally white kids jumping up and down to the Beatles, and yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a great time.
And tell me about Future. I mean, it must have been. I went to Future, and I went to Spectrum as well. I mean, they was like.
Future for me, I loved it way more than Spectrum. I think there was I tell you, I went there with the famous guy, underground club guy called Phil Dirtbox, and there's a guy called Mark. I forget his surname. He did the belly dancing with Lee Barry with the music from The Fall. I forget his surname. So he's got tights on. He's got tights on. Phil Dirtbox is 6'4", and I'm 5'7", and they're both taller than me. We're so on it. We went to the toilet. We started swapping all the clothes. So I'd take all of mine off, and Phil would try and put them on, and then Mark would wear his clothes, and I'd come out and wear tights. And I remember going on the dance floor, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. C was there, and he's wearing a fur coat. And I think at the end of that, I said, "Where are you off to?" He said, "Oh, I've got me milk round." So he'd pop out at 4 in the morning, like off your bonds and do a milk. I said, "Oh, it's easy." Put the milk down the doorstep with eggs and a can of orange. You know the one.
Mr. C, because I interviewed Mr. C. He was telling me about his milk round. What a character, and what a great MC as well. He used to MC like.
Well, that was back in the day, especially when it started to become a bit more. What you would call it? Not hard house. The split off from acid house. It was a little bit more.
Like hip house stuff.
Yeah, but it was a bit more. But you would have chanters, and I think wasn't a guy called Ricky? There was another guy. I went to Boys On Do, and he's on the mic or whatever. And And he just thought, yeah, there was a period for a couple of years, you know, that sort of happy hardcore, you know, beep, 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 you know, it's different, you know, I remember that. Yeah, I think I was getting out of it by that time. I was starting to get into bikes and just go down a different route. I think for me, I don't want to be disingenuous to anyone, but I think I see sort of ties with acid house and punk. And as John Lineman said, he said, well, it was great for about a year and a half, and then all the idiots came, and it became massive. And when it started to have fairgrounds, Rottweiler dogs, bouncers of M1 jackets, charging a fortune, and I went, I prefer, and you know, the DJ being a star, well, back in the day, the DJ was tucked in the corner with a mag light in his mouth trying to find a record, you know, and then all of a sudden, which is great, you know, the Superstar DJ thing.
And all of a sudden it blew up. And what was Oakenfold like?
He was fantastic. I mean, he's when he came to the studio, he came with Paul, Gary Hazeman, and Ian St Paul. It was mainly Ian St Paul and Gary. They said, we want to do this club in Heaven, but on Monday night. But I said, me man, it holds nearly 2,000 people, and who the hell would go to a club
on a Monday night? Yeah. So
they printed the flyer. It was Gary again. So Gary gave me the idea give the idea of like a loose brief for Future, Spectrum, and the couple of the boys' owns. So Asia Diver with a big eye. Spectrum, heaven on earth, like that, really clever. But on the back, I put that phrase, have you passed the acid test? And that's what the art was, based on the 60s, with Owsley, Ken Kesey, the Magic Bus. It was like a second coming. I you know, historically saw this, you know, hang on, they've got the equipment, the lights, the drugs are right, the sound system. This is what Ken Kesey was trying to do with the happenings in Los Angeles, you know, in San Francisco. So that's why I based the artwork a bit on that sort of Haight-Ashbury thing. And yeah,
where did you get the idea for the eye? Because the eye was like, yeah.
Well, the eye in the middle, gosh, I want a big eye. But I said, well, I can't just do that, a bit of wording round. But I just bought a book called The Art of Rock, and it's festooned with American flyers, record sleeves. I mean, literally 40 pages of all the original Haight-Ashbury trips, happenings. Really amazing. I mean, the proper original Ken Kesey ones as well. Have you, you know, with the Hells Angels or Tending, and have you passed the acid test? I'm a big fan of Ken Kesey, Tom Wolfe, Kool-Aid acid test, all of that. And they're one of the artists we used to hang about with in the early 60s was called Rick Griffin. And he did this poster for some gig in the early 60s, but he did this lovely red border, this twisty red border. So I took most elements from that. But then I designed the bendy lettering to go around, which is very sort of Haight-Ashbury. But it's all done by hand.
So that was actually hand drawn?
All my artwork was hand drawn. I mean, I look back at it now. I mean, Bomb the Bass. I mean, Renegade Soundwave. I mean, geez, they're like this. I mean, I can't be too descriptive on the camera, but let me say a couple of nefarious guys would leave little packets of thing, because no one suspected a graphic artist. But anyway, I never knew that when you load pills, it goes through your skin, and next thing you know, I'm airbrushing at 8 o'clock at night off my head. Oh, dear. But look at the work I produced anyway. So there's a positive there somewhere. But no,
it was an iconic flyer. I mean, you know, everyone was talking about it. I mean, you know, it was like, and the font as well. The font was amazing.
Yeah, it's all hand drawn. I mean, it was. I'll tell you a quick story. There was the guy who printed it, still a good friend of mine. He's called Paul Ransom. So the first flyer, if you ever get it now, is worth an absolute fortune, because stupidly they put MON for Monday 11 APR April. It's full colour. Like after that opening night, the defunct, there was boxes. They said, instead of just putting Mondays, which are corrected later on, so the bill to do the posters, badges and print that in 4-colour metal plate process, not digital. Paul printed it at night behind his boss's back, but the real bill for that in 1988 was £6,000.
You're joking.
Yeah, if you do thousands of flyers and A3 posters, it's a bit pricey now, but metal plate originated litho press by printing.
£6,000.
The £6,000, yeah.
£6,000
to do thousands, you can get 1,000 flyers digitally now for about 60 quid. But
£6,000 back in 1987.
It's about 17 grand now.
1988. I mean, that was big.
16, 17 grand.
Possibly more.
Possibly more. And on top of that as well, they put MUN 11 April. So I just thought, my God, they just fucked up. I said, right, we've got to do the flyers again, instead of just doing the line-up and just Mondays, which you did eventually. But very brave by Ian St Paul. And well, the first couple of months I went there with Gary Hazeman, the comedian Keith Allen, Paul Dennis. I mean, we used to sit at the Star Bar and it was half empty. I mean, 20 people on the dance floor. But when the summer season kicked in, acid house or raving, whatever you call it, it really, you could feel it gathering momentum. And I think that's a beautiful thing about pre-internet. You hung on to that flyer, you could only imagine what the club's like, you phoned your mate on the landline, and there was mystery. Do you know what I mean? You just said, you got excited.
And you put the flyer up on your bedroom wall with some blue.
Yeah, I mean, loads of people did. I mean, I did a lecture about talking about my old artwork, and I tried to explain to, politely say, the young'uns. And they said, why was the flyer so important? I said, I asked the lecturer, so can you turn the lights off? And he went, well, that's a bit weird, mate. I said, turn the lights off. On the Spectrum flyer, I lit the mag light and I just shone it. So it was a dark room, and all you saw was the flyer, and I go, that's all you know. That was it. That's to cut every sensory perception off, and that's what it was. Very, very important back to the day, but by the mid-90s, late 90s, I think flyers have become not the art form it was really.
But the flyer, the pirate radio stations and the flyers were pivotal in promoting the club.
Absolutely.
So if you had a terrible looking flyer,
there's a few of them. Yeah. I mean, most of the flyers I saw, I mean, they weren't graphically trained like me. I mean, I had a full camera typesetting studio, and at one point I had 3 people working with me.
This is pre-internet, so these flyers would get handed out outside clubs.
That was the only commute. Yeah, that was the only commute. Apparently, Spectrum's one of the very, very few. They were never ever. They didn't say one in the gutter. Somebody told me that weird fact. It's the only flyer they ever saw. They never ever saw one frisbee done cartoned away. But
and how many of these flyers were being printed up?
Thousands and thousands. I mean, I'll tell you, Scott, you're very interesting. You picked up on that as well. Did you see the British Design Museum in Kensington? It was called the History of Techno.
I didn't.
Oh, mate, it was amazing. They had all the original Oberheim Korg synthesizers. Amazing. Go back to the late 70s, Georgia Moroder, blah blah blah. Pictures of the clubs, the Bergenheim, etc., etc. Even down to Depeche Mode and bits. It's just real electronically Chicago or whatever. So anyway, I went there with a wife. She's a bit nonplussed with it. She was into soul music anyway, and it was quite a heartwarming thing. So when you leave, there's an empty room, half empty room. And all you go by is a little glass case about this big, and it had 16 flyers and 5 were mine.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, there's talk about being there at the start, really. So, to be enshrined in that, with it's as if they're saying this was the kicking point off of London. So anyway, nailed the coffin down. At least there's a couple of bits I've done. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
There was some great artists. I mean, Pez was another great artist, and obviously Junior Tomlin as well. Big shout out to them too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cut the teeth.
Big time. Yeah, big shout out to both of them. And I've interviewed both of them as well, which was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I've spotted Pez a few times. Then I've got to get round to see Junior. I keep promising the pizza. I'll get you pizza.
Big shout out Junior. But listen, going back to Heaven as well. Tell me about. I mean, that was one of the first clubs I ever went to back in. I think it's 1985 or 86.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, at the time, Heaven had probably one of the best sound systems.
It had the best, I think, on record. It had one of the best sound systems in Europe.
Oh, in Europe, yeah.
Yeah, in Europe, mate. It was the light show. It was, a very brave move by the owners. Again, I'll send you the pastor, the Vimo, to see Simon Needham's documentary on Heaven. It's absolutely fascinating.
Heaven as a club, it was absolutely incredible in there. I mean, the sound, the lighting, everything about that club was on another level.
Yeah, it was certainly. I think originally during the late 70s, it was an indoor market, bizarrely, and then it was became a club, and then Branson got involved, and Branson owns Acid Club, whatever. Remember I think Spectrum made 13 times the front page of the News of the World or the Sun. Became very, very controversial. That whole thing about danger of druggies and. Yeah, it's a joke really, but it was a good bit of history. I had a great time, but when it got really, really massive and I was like 1,000 people queuing up, I sort of retreated and almost stopped going really. I just sort of, it got too big for me, and one of them.
And did you meet Witherell as well, Andy Witherell?
Yeah, we came with the Boyzone, and Gary Hesman and Paul Dennis.
A big RIP to Andy. Yeah, that was it. I'm a massive Witherell fan.
Yeah, he's a good lad, and we got on, and it's a shame I never did more work with Sabres. But me and Andrew always got on. He had a brain. He was, he was good spoken. He was witty.
his production as well.
Yeah, but he's
I mean, obviously Screamadelica. I
yeah,
mean, you know,
but probably just I think with him, and he was almost too much of an artist. I mean, he was almost virulent about living in anywhere place that was hip and trendy. In the end, I think he moved to Tottenham. He'll have to correct me on that, but he said, you know, once I see like a organic coffee place go up, I'm out of here, you know. So yeah, he was, you know, that's, I think that the crucible of acid house or whatever it is, you know, you got your artists and stuff or whatever to a degree. But Chris Sullivan came out with a great phrase. It was really well said. He said, you never saw 22,000 new romantics or punks jumping up and down in a field. And I said, well, that's how massive it was. It was like it was a craze for everyone. I think that, you know, we can't put aside, you know, the influence of.
And do you know what as well, with the house music as well, it really started to unite people together, because basically, you know, if you was black, white, didn't matter about your religion, you know, if you was gay or straight.
Football, different teams, but men, the average man didn't dance then. I mean, I did. I mean, I'd love soul music, and bizarrely, I used to really love going to a goth club. I liked a bit of Joy Division and Bauhaus or whatever, you know, Southern Death Cult and all that. You know, I went round the country with those bands. You know, I just thought that I was more that end, but yeah, having a good jump around and dance, I think on a mass scale, I don't think it's never happened in Britain before. I mean, men stood at the bar staring at the girl's handbag, you know, I mean, unless you were like a proper soul boy like Gary Haseman or Tommy Mac. I mean, they you know, they would tricks, they would, you know, they would hit the dance floor and spin around. But you know, the average man wasn't like that. So it's got lots of positives really, and I think a bit like Thatcherism, we're actually living with the embers of what it's sold today, you know, all night drinking, 24-hour clubs, to a degree, I guess there's laxity with drugs itself as well, but believe me, I mean, I'll come up north, I mean, my mate who obviously had bits and pieces on him in South Shields, I mean, literally, you count on one hand, people were up to that, and now all of a sudden, it's like, you know, you've got bank managers doing it, you know, so it's, for good or bad, it's opened up a few people's chakras, I guess.
So yeah, you also done some work with Boys Own as well, didn't you? Yeah,
that was at the same time. It was, you know, when I did the raid stuff in this big backdrop. And apparently, quick aside, a guy called Jerry DeBorg, who was helping me do. I was also the main window designer for the 2 HMV shops in Oxford Street.
Well, you used to do the windows?
Yeah, I did massive 30-foot high Billy Idols and Queen. It's a Kind of Magic. I painted them 30-foot high by hand, you know. I did window displays. It was good, really good money. And this guy said in the late 80s, he went, oh, I'm forming a band. It's like house music with rock. I went, yeah. Next thing I know, his single's gone to #1 at Jesus Jones. So Jerry DeBorg was the guitarist in Jesus Jones. And we together painted the raid backdrop. We did paintings and stuff. You know, he was one of my partners back in the day. So it was just during that day when I met the Boys on crew, per se. And it was Gary who said, yeah, I want like, in the yard, I want like a geezer with a cat and a dog. Well, the dog actually is my pit bull called Alice, because I had a pit bull in 87, 88. So there's a long story about that as well, because a friend of a friend was the original guy who brought them in the early 80s. And it was, yes, bit tasty, dog fighting. Anyway, let's move on. But the bitches were either put down or didn't fight, so I got little Alice, and that's Alice the dog. I've still got the photograph of that, and that's meant to be me. I used to wear flat caps.
Oh, that's meant to be you.
So
with the
people,
flat cap.
yeah, and I did a little dot on his face, and I've got a birthmark there. So people lie and go, no, that's me and my staff. It's like, no, mate, it's actually based on my dog Alice, and that's meant to be me with a flat cap, with a bit of sort of the character from Mad magazine, sort of like a little bit of touch of that as well, and the Clockwork Orange. So yeah. Gary, immensely visually talented, and he wished, he confided at me after a lot of drinking one night. He said, "You're Dave, I wish I could do what you do. I'd love to do art." And you can see someone who's creative, but they haven't got, you know, skills or vent or whatever, but they've got a real appreciation. And when I met him years later, it was only about a year and a half, 2 years before he died, he came to, and I was going to give him the print. He went, "Dave, I'm going to pay you." And he sat down and he just went, "I've just always loved your art." He said, "I don't want a donkey drawn, I want a Dave Little donkey." And he's a lovely man. We're picked off on the left off, and we were great friends because we talked easily as this when I hadn't seen him for 27 years. And he sat down and went, "Hello, Bullseye, how are you?" And we just talked and talked. It was as if I'd seen him yesterday. And I was very, very distraught when he passed away. And I was one of the last people he phoned, apparently. He tried to get through, but I didn't pick up because with Gary, it's an hour on foot. Then I was on the motorbike or something like that. So.
And tell me about the, you know, I mean, you've really designed some really kind of iconic record covers as well. You know, From the Bass, S Express, Stereo MCs, Betty Boo. I mean,
not Betty Boo. I only did bits of work. Renegade Soundwave are the big ones as well, with the for Rhythm King. But it was Carl who got me in, and Martin Heath had started the company, and Mark Moore from S Express was heavily involved before he's S Express. And he saw I only had 2-3 record sleeves, and he said, darling, you've got the whole gig, and I've got these, you know, I've got this new acts. I've just signed S Express, I've got Bomb the Bass, the Betty Boo thing, and this, you know, your Carl Bonney's new band, Renegade Soundwave. I've got Man Machine, I've got etc. etc. And I went, oh right, okay, and that's where I started, you know.
So how did you meet Mark Moore? Big shout out to Mark.
It was just through, big shout out. I was out with him last week. With,
I'm trying to get Mark in the cab. So
I'll give you a shout. I'll give him a shout. I went to see Johnny Jewell. He's the Italian. He does a lot of soundtracks. He did Bronson, Drive. He does really underground. The Drive soundtrack for the movie Drive with Ryan Reynolds or whatever it is fantastic. Cooper, what is it, Cooper? Anyway, so yes, I went there, and he was doing a live set for 1 hour, and it was absolutely fabulous, and we both went together. It was great to see him. So yeah, that was when I met Mark, and then the big influence for me was Tim Simon, Bomb the Bass. I mean, that guy was 17, 18.
Is that all?
Fucking mate.
Young.
But the Rhythm King pretended it was an American import to get interest from the press. And I mean, when he did Beat This, and it went to #1 and #2.
A friend of mine, Merlin, as well, he done the rapping.
Well, I'm used to the Merlin. I did 2 of his record sleeves as well. Well, isn't his uncle sadly passed away? Wasn't he the Cockney?
That's right.
That's the one. What was his name again?
No, with your
Act like that. He's got like he does this sort of record like.
No. It's
you know the one anyway.
Culture.
Smiley Culture. That's right. But me and Merlin got on like an absolute house on fire. He was I thought he was brilliant. One Tim Turner record was hip hop and
Merlin.
Hip hop and Precinct 13 when he used the Precinct dun. I just love it. I mean, anyway, when I met Tim, he was recording actually where we are now. If we go literally 80 metres that way, just over there, that's where the recording studio is, which is now my friend Guy Chambers is just next door to it. He's literally 80 metres away, and Rhythm King and Mute Records, we're just over the Curly Bridge there. It's been knocked down now.
Yeah.
So that was there. So we're literally in a hub of it. The video production company called Papata, they were in Canlot, which is my studio now, where we're looking at that now. So there's a lot of history here. Anyway, I went to see Tim, and he's what do you want to do for the LP? And he went, well, I'm half Japanese, and there's this new style called manga, these cartoons. So unless you went to Forbidden Planet and you were like a nerd, before internet, they didn't sell manga covers at the newsagent. And I went, what's this new sort of graphic style? He went, right, I'll get you 2 magazines, I want it like this. And that's why I did that sort of weird, sort of futuristic.
With Tim on the front.
On the front with the futuristic guns, and he always wore that little sheepskin turned up.
That's right. And was all that hand drawn?
All hand drawn, yeah. I did the ellipses and everything. It was. You look back at it now. I mean, all the pen and ink work I did on it, I'd be absolutely hard pushed to do that. You know, just the pen and ink work and all the I can airbrush now. I picked it up like I'm a second nature to it. But to do that by hand, remember, if you made a mistake airbrushing or you spilt ink or anything like that, you'd literally sometimes have to start again.
So yeah, there must have been some like wild stories back then. I mean, is there any kind of a few wild stories you can talk about?
I've got loads.
Obviously, look, Dave. What's said
I've
in
got
the
loads.
cab?
I've got loads and loads.
What's said in the cab usually stays in the cab, but. Is there anything?
There's one I'll tell you now, and I'm going to send you the JPEG. Somebody posted a picture of me, Gary Haseman, Sandra, and Johnny Rocker, and I'm in the background. You can tell it's me, but I've got the point above my ears, the hairline, and I've got my little birthmark, and I'm wearing a denim jacket. I'll tell you the story. So, when Beastie Boys, well, this is mad. When Beastie Boys came over in '87, they were Licensed to Ill was fucking notorious. They were the badass white boy hip hop. They were slagging off, so whatever they did, you know, they're like sort of pistol sex. They were real, I don't know, real nerdy, sort of like chuck beer around and tell people to fuck off. You know, they're just kids anyway. So when they did the UK tour, they had an after tour party at Diorama, which is right next to top of Great Portland Street, next to Regent's Park. It's like a big circle building. I've been to a few clubs there. I think on record, you'll have to correct this, Pete Tong gave Paul Dennis a VIP ticket, only VIPs, like, Run DMC were there, Big Oldie Dynamite, Mick Jones, it was like top end. Ginger Baker, mate, Def Jam, who's who were there. Anyway, so ridiculously, Paul came to me and he said, I've got this black and white, I'm allowed to go. And I went, Paul, I've got my own printing studio. So I originated the artwork. I think my mate printed it, or Johnny O'Printed, I don't know who it was, printed it. We even did the perf marks down the side where you rip it off. We all met in our gang hut. It was literally a Foxtrot called the Lamb and Flag, run by Gary. I mean, we were upstairs, that was our gang hut. So I got 20 of the nastiest, hardest mates from Hayes, the pit bullfighter, Adam Brothers. I mean, like, these are tasty, but they were great fun. Paul Dennis knew, because Paul was a fucking nut job as well when he wanted to be. Gary, Johnny Rocker, everyone. And someone had the bright idea to break out 30 tabs of window pane acid.
No.
So we left that, and by now I'm blazing. So we walked down the road, walked up Great Portland Street, giggling our head off. Press were there, 2 bouncers on the door, and of course we just walked up and gave that. And the guy looks a little bit like that, looks at us and just let us in. Anyway, the first record they played on the dance floor was Pretty Vacant, God Save the Queen. So all of my lot, Rocker and everyone, we all threw our beers in the air, because it's like Beastie Boys, that's what you do. So the bouncers are right on edge, and I think Johnny Rocker was on stage. He was sitting next to Ginger Baker, and he just stood still for half an hour with like a lampshade on his head. He just didn't move, and I went, right, it's getting a bit like that. Next thing I know, I was in a VIP section, and my friend Martin Mulligan, back in the day, had a joint. And I said, have you got a light? He said, I haven't. So who's walking in, 3 feet away from us, walking towards us, is Mick Jones with a stunning blonde. And he said, here, Mick, have you got a light? He said, no. He said, what fucking pop star are you, mate? And we're sitting there smoking joints. Then there was a food fight. Johnny Rocker and Gary Hazeman were throwing vol-au-vents, sticking a Run DMC's bowler hat. And then fights were breaking out. The bouncers got involved, and Paul took me to the lavatory for 10 minutes. When it calmed down, we popped bang out. He went, yeah, it's all right now. So that was... and I'm actually going to send you, somebody posted a picture of me, Johnny Rocker, Gary Hazeman and Sandra, and I've got the actual picture. I was shocked when I put it up. I mean, when you see yourself in 1986,
I mean, there must have been some mad parties.
We were just mad. I mean, it's, back in the day, it's not just youthful energy, but I mean, I have to be honest here. Due to a couple of characters I knew, I had access to the amount of drugs which would turn your hair white. I mean, it just didn't cost a thing. It's like, bags and bags of it. What do you want? Yeah, go and take some. And then you're going out. And then, I mean, me and Splurge, we used to do half a bottle of vodka neat before we spin the top off, pop off. And then we used to be a proper drinker, and I used to do that. Then pop a couple of bits or whatever and go to Club Trick in 91. And I mean, absolutely spaced out my mind. I look back at it now and I go, fucking hell, it was insane. But London was like that, though. London was like that.
We had no fear. We
didn't care.
People just just got absolutely obliterated.
Yeah, didn't care. I mean, it's that heady mix on a mass consumption drugs, which you'd never really seen before.
And also, tell me, didn't you design the flying emblem as well?
Flying for that was for Charlie Chester.
Charlie Chester, and
I did a sub club. I did fucking loads. Method Air for Ben and Andy. I mean, people are posting some stuff up, and I just completely forgot. Oh, I did that one. I've got the artwork somewhere, So, yeah, I mean, I became this sort of Mr. Flyer, record sleevey. But the big change for me was when Johnny Rocker started working with Michiko Casino. So in about 87, 88, 89, 88, 89, I met her. It's quite a fascinating story. She said, I just need some graphics. And, and she was really up and coming. I mean, she spearheaded the new fashion, man. I mean, she had the Covent Garden shop. There's no one quite like Michiko, and I saw her last week. I'm still great friends with her today. And we came up with the idea at the same time. It's weird. A Club Trick. I bumped 1990, 91. I bumped it with Dave Riddler and Paul Dennis. I bumped into Andrew Ridgely, and he's just finished with Wham. But he was a big sports bike rider, and I was into sort of off-road. And then he went, I've just bought this V4 Honda RC30 Isle of Man. Of course, I'm like a bit on one on a Friday night. At 2 in the morning, you open the garage and went, that's it, mate. I've got to have one of them. 11 grand, and 11 grand when you're 26 years old. That's like 30 grand. I mean, a bike that you got now is 34.
You could have bought a flat for that as well.
The deposit, easy. Yeah, flats are going 70, 60 grand
Quite a
around my way.
big deposit.
No, they spunked it on bikes. I had 2 of them in 1 year. Anyway, but I got into that, and that's when I was sort of life. And with the bike thing, it was a big thing, and we were getting handmade leathers and carbon fibre helmets back in the day. But when I said this to Michiko, she said, I want to do this for the street. Well, nobody ever did modern Japanese bike wear for the street apart from Vanson. Everybody else wore the bros, the big pointy black collars, the zips. But we were wearing these Airtex leather with sponsorship Michelin stickers on. So she said, very interesting. She said, oh, I know Takeda. I said, who's he? He said, mate, he made all the suits for all the race teams. And the biggest race in the world back in the day was called the Suzuka 8 Hour. So this guy was a multi-millionaire. He had a Porsche Turbo. There's only 300 made. I mean, a $250,000 then. Biggest trade set. Oh, Mr. Little. He measured me up in laser. And 3 days later, he made me a full fitted suit, which I crashed in at 120 mile an hour, and it saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the end of that bike.
And it was nearly,
yeah, that I wrote the other one off anyway, but 26, you didn't really care, so. Yeah, that's when I started with Michiko, and then did Motor King, Golf Wear, and then Pucker Clubber, which is dedicated club wear. And she was so far ahead of her time, man. I mean, you look at the stuff she designed then. Most men have got jeans up here, baggy white t-shirts, long hair, a shit waistcoat, and I'm walking around like a fucking spaceman. You see, she was way ahead of her time. She's a great designer, and she's fabulous, so that's where I started. And I went to Japan and did some stuff there, and God, 26, 27, what a ball. Made money, and just, it was great, fantastic. Wow. Lots of freedom as well, it was lovely.
So yeah, let's I'll tell you what, let's talk about the late 90s. I mean, what's going on in the late 90s?
Well, the mid to late 90s, strangely enough, we're next to Candlelight Production Studios, and you're going to pop in a minute.
Yeah, anyone watching this, I'm going to pop in and we're going to check out.
Very, very quick, and
check out Dave's
haven't washed your coffee cups, it's all right. Yes, it's so I got the studio on the ground floor. Another mad stories here. In '96, and I started really doing freelance work. Starting to do advertising work, and more about that later. But when I walked in, literally within a week, upstairs, Steve Sharples had a #1 hit, Are You Out There, with FFRR, and he was just a year later. He did all the music for Moulin Rouge, Baz Luhrmann. So he's top floor. You had Tricky at the other end of the corridor. 2 years later, you had Metalheads. The best one is Jason Donovan was 4 doors down from me, and on a Friday night I'm working late doing some work, and I heard the snot. He went, "G'day, mate, do you mind if I pop in?" I said, "Yeah, come on in, mate." Anyway, the rest is history. I think we stayed awake for quite a while. Anyway, let's move on. And then next door to me, fascinatingly, was Billy Curry. Now, he was right next door to me. He did all the synth work for Ultravox, Gary Newman, Tubeway Army, I think it was Fade to Grey, Ultravox. Yeah, I mean, when you come to like synth licks, I mean, in the early to mid 80s, I mean, Billy Curry was it. So yeah, he was next door to me. Transit Records are down the corridor, and I sort of, this studio was just full of music, and a lot of it was funded by FFRR. Back in the day when someone would just give you 100 grand and go, come back in a year with some tracks, So it was good fun, but very hedonistic as well. I mean, I found Gary, he did Gavin, he did the Chocolate Club on a Friday night there, and it was just bedlam. I mean, I had to pass to get to the studio. I had about 50 people in the studio doing whatever. It was just crazy times.
It was a wild time, wasn't it?
Early 30s, you didn't care. The London was buzzing. And I must say to anyone, watching it, I mean, you look back even in my trade and anything, it was just how easy it was to find money. If you got a budget, it's like, it was shocking. What was it? I've got to buy out for a logo, 30 grand, and we've got this sleeve to do, and well, how much do you want for a day's work? It's a rush job. Give us a grand. Yeah, that's fine. And now I think the world's changed.
And also a lot of it was cash. It's probably.
Oh no, I did. I mean, I work with firms. I mean, very few. I mean, cash to me, but I mean, it's just that, especially in advertising during the glory days. I mean, what I would charge. But now record sleeves as well. But now, I've got to do the flowered up. I've got to do the revamping, repackaging of the flowered up for FFRR. So they've given us a budget, and I've got to start that next week, which isn't bad. But you do look at it, you go, well, hang on, allowing for inflation, I got paid double 30 years ago. The early 2000s, it was quite traumatic. You could see the end of the music industry as we knew it. FFRR was sold. All of a sudden, Virgin Records at the end of the road. All of a sudden, there's not 300 people there. There's 30, and all the musicians moved out of Camelot. There was just no money. All of a sudden, you know, Apple Music kicked in. I actually saw it, you know, and then I walked in after I left a year later, and it was full of like people talking about the internet, wearing suits, and I went, what? And that was you saw the future unfolding. So
yeah,
I had the best times anyway.
With all the downloading and all that, and the
it was just people. Remember Napster? People wouldn't buy people wouldn't buy fucking shit. You know, especially after the CD and LP format. All of a sudden, it's an MPEG. And next thing you know, Tower Records, valued at hundreds of millions, is worth about 10 million. You know what I mean? So anyway, moving on. So I left there, and I had a hard couple of years. And then I sort of started designing, I came up with these mad skull t-shirts. It was called Votan, and next thing you know, it was a massively popular. I did that with their license to retail. They're the main guys behind the Rolling Stones stuff. And then again, it was good times, and I built a house, place down the road. Hand built it myself, a lot of the work. And then basically had this bit of a slump, and that's when I met the wife. She's starting out being a head of production for Hollywood movies. And she said, do a bit of courier work, do this. And then I got back on my feet. I had a bit of a bad time. All of us did. I mean, imagine, pessimistic, depressing as it is. But I remember loads of A&R men just walking out of London, the FFRR, and just go, we're all out of a job. Do you know there was 140 fully paid A&R men in London and to the late 90s. By the early 2000s, mid-2000s, there's 10.
Wow.
So, and they're on all proper decent money, because all of a sudden you're watching it on the internet, you know. So things were definitely changing. But when I went to New York to see Martin Heath, who's Rhythm King, and he phoned me and he said, I found this band in Texas. They were playing on the street. I said, oh, what they're called? He said, oh, the first gigs at the Rocket, Holloway Road. What they're called? Oh, the Killers. So me and about 10 A&R and about 25 people. And they did the full set, Mr. Brightside, Smile Like You Mean It. And he said, what do you think, Dave? And I went, fuck me, they're amazing. And then literally V Festival next year I was standing on stage with them. So they went from a gig of 30 people to 60,000 at the V Festival. And I mean, Hot Fuss outsold U2, I think. They were massive. Anyway, but through that, he was in New York. I went there and I bumped into a guy called Freddie Fellows, who does Secret Garden Party, which is the original underground, fantastic, one of the best festivals. You know, everybody copies them now, but back in the day there was nothing like Secret Garden. And he said, oh, I'm doing a festival in a Shinnecock Indian reservation. I went, do you want to do the graphics? I went, well, better than Korean work. Yeah, I'll do that. Very clever, because the Indians on their own land don't get taxed. So if you have a festival, you don't get taxed. So that was good. And I did the graphics for that. And then my lawyer was out there, and he came back. He said, oh, I want you to start on Secret Garden, because my artist is 70 now. He's a bit slow. And he said, oh, start off with a poster. And I just did amazing work for him. Absolutely. I mean, he would spend with me. I mean, you know, he's a Slade art student, but he's not an artist per se. He's different. But he had a massive respect to my style, and I could just draw anything for him, you know. So.
And how long did you work with us?
On and off for Freddie, about 6 years, until the very last Secret Garden. I did a crazy poster, and I did like animation projected on 60-foot high movie screens, 60-foot wide. Organised music with Steve Sharples, fireworks, came up with concepts and stuff. We used to meet in not Groucho, our members club, Corvardis, every 2 weeks, and you know, when you've got that sort of backup and money and family history, you could just invent stuff and go, well, let's build a 60-foot robot, you know. He was great. He was great to work for. He's a fascinating guy. I've got to see him again this year, actually.
Something I picked up on. Did you actually say that you built your house by hand?
Yes, it's through association. There was basically 4 already separated flats. The house was built in 1864. But basically, due to the hard times in the early 2000s, I was on this list, and he went, well, you're going to get one, but you've got to build it. We'll pay for basic materials, but... So we were 4 guys, we each helped each other. We moved from the basement to the ground floor to my floor, Stuart's floor. And, massive front room, made of ale, wood burner, soundproof flooring, soundproof ceiling. It's like, the build is actually probably better than the private spec, but I did that for 4 years, from 7 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. At night time I do my graphics, and that's when I started coming up with the rock and roll t-shirts. And that's when Rockers Delight started as well. So
basically that's what kicked off, Rockers Delight, your clothing line.
Yeah.
Is that what kicked it off? So
I'd always been designing. I did my first Rockers Delight t-shirt after Votan. I mean, I drew that skeleton biker, and I drew the biker skull with a helmet and the spanners, which is made into a metal belt. And I drew that in 2002. No matter what anybody says, I'm a biker. No one gave a shit about Triumph, bobbers, beards, open helmets. It just weren't around. There wasn't no Bikers Cafe in East End. You did off-road, or you did sports bike like me, or I used to ride Parry Dakar bikes. I mean, if anybody says there was, it's bullshit. It was tiny. Apart from Motorcycle News with a little shitty little catalogue in there, nobody wore biker stuff, you know. The whole beard thing wasn't in, but I was one of the first to do it. And then all of a sudden,
because that kind of look is massive now, isn't it?
It's massive now, yeah.
I mean, you're getting beard oil now and
all of that, but yeah, that whole Triumph Barber jacket. My dad used to ride off-road bikes with John Barber in the late 60s in South Shields. He died in 69, but my dad used to do off-road with him, so anyway. But yeah, it was just on, and I said the biker thing. But when I wanted money to get back, everyone said, nah, the rubbish. I went, next thing you know, Beckham's on a Harley and a Triumph. He's riding this. I mean, we're talking like, you know, the classics, vintage. Well, I do the stupid fast bikes anyway. I'm still alive. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I've been into it originally, and everyone. Keith Flint was a really good bike rider. We've been into the Ducatis bikes, R1s. I mean, I've had them all really, but the one I've got now is like, I think that's bloody bonkers. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if they banned them, you know. Anyway,
well, I'll tell you what. Should we have a little pause for the calls, and should we go up to your studio and check out the clothing? I can't wait to see the.
It's a good link. It's a good link, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't wait to see the Rockers Delight.
Right, so we've just arrived at Dave's studio, Camelot in West London.
Yeah, that's it. West
London. Dave's going to go through a few of his clothing with his brand. How did you get the name, firstly?
My dad was a rocker. He was a proper ton-up boy. He had a Trident. My Uncle Jeff was a rocker. Bit of a Teddy boy thing. And I thought, yeah, well, I'm a biker as well. And basically, Rocker's Delight is a play on words because it's a famous reggae. So it's a Rocker's Delight, and then you've got the play on words. But it's not really a biker brand, but it's got elements of that as well. So it's just, I mean, it's just like tailored denim.
I mean the quality. I mean, look at the quality of this.
Yeah, it's very hard.
It's heavyweight as well, isn't it?
But I do bucket pockets around. Most people do square pockets. They're really hard to do. Do you know what I mean?
But you do the more rounded.
But that's
style.
difficult. Everything I do is a little bit difficult, and that's I've got the jeans to go with it, and that's a waistcoat. So it's lined with linen pockets, and that's a poacher's pocket. It's called a half moon gilet. And that's the original smock pattern from France when the shore coat was used as a workman's thing in there. And I've done a little military cuff, so it's not even square. I've done a little angled military cuff. So if you can alter it, you can.
Beautiful.
And the patches, the elbow patches on the arms are internal.
Ah, so they're not on the outside?
Yeah, it's not on the outside. But and the arms are pre-curved and stuff. No, just I'm really into like old school. This is I think this is an old bomber. This is what this is here. I think before the actual during the mid-30s. I think it's is it a B9? It was before the advent the Second World War, which is a proper B3, which I've got some over there. And I found this style. I mean, nobody does it. I mean, this is like an open cockpit. And it's a half and half, so it's real shearling, and that's proper melting wool, really thick, and proper goat skin, and
beautiful.
It's just unusual stuff. I mean, I'm an archaeologist, you know. I just got to get into stuff. The shirts I do, which is an original work shirt, it's called a scallop back. It's not straight, triple stitched. So everything, all the accents are like reverse. I've reversed the stripes on it. So that's done, and it goes right the way around the front, the actual, because that's meant for bags or carrying straps or whatever with a latch collar. An engineer's pocket, a lot of work in a shirt, and Portugal hates me. He said, well, don't come back. I mean, the sent machine is smart to make it, so. That's what I do. I do with the varsity coats as well. I do a lovely nylon, Harrington. It only weighs about 150 grams, it's waterproof. But it's just so light. It weighs 200 grams, and you know, you've got the venting. It's got the YKK zips and everything. It's got the internal neck pockets. and it's
Beautiful.
got more detail than Barracuda actually.
How do you sell this? Have you got like a website?
It's
Got a
just
website?
online. Yeah,
What's the website?
Rockersdelight.com.
Rockersdelight.com.
So yeah, that's online. I'm doing this for the end of summer. That's an all wool varsity, but unlike these are originals from the 80s, they're worth a fortune. But the original varsities, they knitted the rib. It's not polyester. So I found a knitting factory that did me 2 colourways. That's actually merino wool knitted.
I've felt that, and
And
the actual weight, the weight of that
That's
is like
mountain wool, and most, if you get a £1,000 varsity, you're guaranteed 40% is polyester, but that's all. And I did the pre-curved arm, but when you wear it, and there's YKK poppers, but
it's heavyweight.
yeah, it's heavyweight.
I mean, that's going to last a lifetime.
Yeah, and you've got the proper deep pocket, and it's a proper, sateen lining. Yeah, it's there, and I'll probably finish up with this actually. The short piece is the leather, and Guy Chambers, Robbie Williams' producer, bought one 3 weeks ago. The pattern's cut by my mate, ex-Vivian Westwood, and the leather's made by Victor Chumassel, and he used to be ex-Aston Martin. So he did the leather wear. So when you see that in the applique, that's all hand stitched.
Wow.
And there's my dad's skull. That's my Rockers logo. That's it. There you go. Is it 50?
Yep.
59 clubs. The Ace Cafe. That's one of the oldest proper bike associations in the world.
Wow.
And that's my dad's helmet. He's all split leather, and that's made of Alba goatskin, which is way better than the Belstaff. Way better. It's beautiful with the black accents as well, but it's beautifully cut. So there you go.
Incredible. I mean, what can I say?
This is my collection. This is all the stuff I collect varsities and bloody. I've got tons. There's a little one-off I've made. I've got tons. Look, I've got that Ralph Lauren little one I made as well, which is a detachable shirling. But I got this made, and that's goatskin, green goatskin, beautiful. It's got a button-in lining, which you can do the puffer lining to it. I love old military stuff as well.
And your eyes really like on that detail, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about craft or whatever. I wouldn't wear a label, but I mean, these are worth a fortune. I mean, that is a proper varsity. Look, and it should have a knitted collar. It's not a polyester rib. That is wool. That is knitted wool.
Where's this from? The States?
No, it probably from the States, but it's Japanese. So,
right.
And I collect, real McCoys or whatever and stuff like this as well. So, and this is only 10th of the collection. I've got garages and it's ridiculous. Oh, my old Ducati suit. There you go. That one saved me life once. Anyway, so there you go. It's
and it's an incredible collection.
Yeah.
And over here we have
oh, good lord, yes.
the Spectrum Heaven on Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I got this made. There's a great firm that do printing down the road, and basically they said, do you want to illuminate it, and they built that for me as well. So there it is. So this is the original, which I lost all the money on, which is Monday, 11th of April. It's defunct after the opening night. All these colour flyers, so if you've got them, people, worth a fortune. There you go.
How many's out there? Any idea? Oh, I mean, obviously a lot have gone missing.
Thousands original, but I mean...
So there was thousands printed
yeah,
up?
but I mean, obviously back in the day you didn't think many kudos or whatever, but it's like, when you print a record sleeve wrong and there's only 1,000, or a Pistols single which EMI burnt, but there's rumours there is an ex-employee who's got a box of original EMI, and actually got the original box, and apparently there were thousands per single. So the original with the 11th of April, because it was defunct after that, it wasn't used again and again. I don't know, probably only about a couple of hundred or maybe 50 or whatever, but if you've got one, you're sitting on a fortune. They're going for up to £1,000 now, I think.
Don't, if anyone's got one, don't get rid of it.
No. I sell a print with about a quarter of the cost anyway. So there you go, it's yeah.
Well, Dave, what can I say? Listen, what an absolute brilliant cab chat. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's nice.
It's something a bit different, isn't it?
Yes, and it's nice to get the synapses and the memories or whatever, but if you ever did another one, you said mad stories. Oh my good lord. I've got some mad ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Paul, Gary, and Milton Keynes. And I was on that RC30 race bike with my leathers on, and I made up. And the police had blocked everyone leaving, but the cop thought I was going on a Sunday morning drive. Go on, Mike, yeah, go on. and my eyelids are black like that. And I think I raced a Porsche on the way down to see Paul Dennis on the A1 like that. Got there and it's madness, mate. You look back at it now, and I'm just amazed we're all still here and just in one piece. It's part of history. Glad to be involved in it. It's not the biggest foundation in my life, like a lot of people. It's the biggest thing, but it was just by default. I was right in the epicenter, and I guess it's all part of history, really. So.
No, and you are part of history as well. As
interesting,
I say.
Interesting life.
And I'll tell you what, the way I kind of love to end these interviews is, is there any, like, do it the old school way? Is there anyone you want to kind of give a little shout out to?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, I hope Gary Haseman's resting up there. But Mr. Bullseye, I really hope he's, do Mr. Guy, even if we briefly only saw each other. Paul Dennis still kicking around now. All the original club guys, Oakenfold, Colin Hood and everyone, all of that, Martin Heath, sort of Rhythm King. So Mark Moore last week, we're still friends.
Yeah, shout out to Mark Moore.
Reach out for Tim Simon and Bomb the Bass. He went to Budapest, I think, and my friend Adele, who owned half of Rhythm King, she's got his email address. So I think in this time of life, I mean, not to leave on a morbid note, but, I'm 60 next year, and due to the wonders of having a motorbike, I'm seeing Adele in Wales, that's 180 miles away. The average person wouldn't get on a train or a car. And I went, well, I knock on people's doors at 10 in the morning and go, I'll come for you. Yeah, you want them? I told you I'd be here. And I turn up, I leave at 6 in the morning, get my leathers on, get the bike out the garage.
And off you go.
Oh, right old hoon, and you just see old friends. I'm seeing Jack Schooner in 2 weeks' time. Show that he's blind, and if he's there, Martin Rush, my mate, sold an idea. He had thought Amazon, but he's now mega wealthy, so he's there. And then Tom Conran, Terence Conran's son of the cow, was meant to go there tonight. He owns the cow. He's there. And just at the end of that little road trip is my lawyer at Lyme Regis, and he's best friends with Mark Hicks, the chef. So he's the top man with Nick at the Groucho, and I've started doing loads of cartoons for him, and I do all the illustrations for the Groucho, so that's a nice thing. He's really cool, Hicks. He's got a lot of history as well. So
I mean, we could go on forever with a shout out. So and it's Trevor Fung and everyone.
Fung, exactly, the Fungster.
The Fungster. Listen, Trevor, you watch this. We need to get you in the cab as well.
Yeah, Colin Hood, man. He's got a lot of history. It's just these guys. Last word is we're still here. I'm touch wood with the bike. I'm still in one piece, and and I'm just I think we're so fortunate to see London. From the 70s, 80s and 90s, I think that
it was a magical time, wasn't it?
Magical time, and now it's just bloody hell. We've got to make hundreds of times a year just to keep your head above water. So I really like it, so I'm very fortunate I was here. So it's been a pleasure, Steve, and thank you very much.
Listen, mate,
I hope the stories made sense anyway. I hope they did.
Listen, it's been an absolute honour, Dave. And anyone watching, go and check out my YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. But more important, go and check out rockersdelight.com and get your merchandise, because Dave makes absolutely wicked merch, as you say.
Handmade and very small runs.
Yeah.
That's it. Go back in the shop.
But listen, it's been an honour, my man. And I hope you've enjoyed this little interview.
Certainly did, yeah. There certainly was a memory lane. Apart from my brain still work. Enough said anyway. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been an honour. But